Today, we take a hard look at vaccines. Are you a pro-vaxxer, anti-vaxxer? Well, we'll talk about that and Michael Jackson and Unplanned coming to theaters near you on March 29th. I am your host, Elisa Steele. You're listening to Deconstructing the Culture. So starting off, if you don't watch this show on YouTube, you should. And if you are watching on YouTube, then you can see that today I am wearing a shirt that says, "Women's rights begin in the womb." This is a live action t-shirt. I love live action. If you haven't heard me talk about them already, you'll hear about me talk about them again in the future because they're phenomenal. I love what they're doing. So I am wearing this shirt in honor of International Women's Day, which was last week, and I posted about that, and I got to introduce you to my mom, which was awesome. But I believe that the left and those who are pushing the hardest for so-called women's rights, I believe that they are being contrary to their message when they're pushing for things like, paid parental leave after birth, but they're not even pushing for the most important of women's rights, and that is their right to be born, their right to survive the womb and not be aborted. So I'm wearing this shirt for International Women's Day. Moving into our first topic from here. Today, I want to talk a little bit about vaccines. Now, I've gotten a lot of questions from y'all about this already. It's literally, I have like email upon direct message of y'all asking me about vaccines. And I've been holding off talking about it just because we've had some crazy news cycles. But the reason why I want to talk about it specifically today is because actually a Senate hearing last Tuesday, so that's almost a week ago, the Washington State Public Health Secretary, John Weisman, he demanded that the feds launch a national campaign to counter anti-vaxxers or anti-vaccine groups that are spreading the condemned false information. Weisman called for increased funding from the Centers of Disease Control to combat opponents of the state's push to prevent parents from opting their children out of immunizations for personal or philosophical reasons. Health officials have blamed vaccine critics' social media influence for recent measles outbreak, and so Weisman further urged for Twitter, Facebook, and Google to, quote, use whatever mechanism they have available to stop promoting this pseudoscience. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, this is disturbing. I don't care if you agree with him that anti-vaxxers are crazy or not. I fall somewhere in the middle, to be honest with you. While I don't necessarily know if vaccines cause all of the broad spectrum of problems that they have been slandered with, I don't know if that's 100% the case. I'm sure that there's a middle ground, quite frankly. On the other hand, will my children be fully vaccinated? Probably not. I do believe that if anything, there's a overload of them at one time, especially when children are so young. So if anything, I think we can agree that at least these vaccines should be tested and also spread out. But will my children be fully vaccinated? I mean, time will tell. I don't have children yet, but I'm leaning towards no. Am I fully vaccinated? Yes, I am fully vaccinated. This is before a lot of this was even a huge issue. Plus, I got I should say some of my vaccinations in Mexico. Hence, if you're on YouTube, you can see this on my arm, on my right arm. You see this kind of like dimple/dent? It comes down right here, and it's actually really tender and it hurts. It like permanently just hurts. And it's this like little scar. I don't even know if you can see that yet. You can see it right there. And I don't know what it is, but a lot of people who get their vaccinations in foreign countries have that. It like messes with the scar tissue. And I don't know if everyone hurts like mine does. Like my husband will sometimes, like grab me around the arms, just like sweet pulling me in. And if he does it on the wrong side and he hits that, I'm just like, ow, don't do that. Because it's just always been like that from a little girl ever since I got that vaccine in Mexico. It's been like that. I digress. That's off subject. What I'm saying is, while I do believe that some vaccines are life-saving and have eradicated some diseases that were are life-threatening still in other countries, that I believe that there is a place for everything. And yes, I think it's a wonderful thing that we have vaccines, but at the same time, I believe that it is 100% up to the individual or the parents to decide if they're going to vaccinate themselves and or their children. And the reason being is, as a conservative, I feel like we should be able to rally to this. And I think it's crazy. And I don't know. I just think it's ludicrous that there are so many prominent conservatives who are so pro-vaccination. They're like, nope, it should be because it's about collective whole. I don't care. Collective whole my butt, okay? It's a vaccination. It goes in your body, and you want to hand this huge amount of power to the federal freaking government. Do you know how badly they've screwed up on everything? Like, take the freaking postal system. They can't even handle delivering your mail, and they've been literally they've been in the red. The postal system has been deeply in debt since year one, and it's not showing any signs of ever actually being self-sustaining or profitable. So they can't even handle your mail, and you want them to handle your body and be in charge of mandatory vaccinations and mandatory telling you what you're going to put in your body. Come on. Seriously, if you're a conservative, I feel like we should at least be able to agree that vaccinations, whether you agree with them or not, it should be up to the individual and the parents. The government should not have a say. Like, we're already complaining about the government taxing us too much and them wasting our money on welfare programs that we don't agree with, or, supporting issues that we morally are against. Why the heck would we be in favor of them being able to tell us what we do and don't put in our body? Like, it's basically like, honestly, it sounds like the whole my body, my choice. Like, we tell liberals, like, hey, we don't, like, it's not your body, it's actually the baby's body. And the liberals are screaming, my body, my choice. Well, I'm a you decide for yourself vaxxer. I'm not an anti-vaxxer or a pro-vaxxer. Like, you decide for yourself, because it's my body, my choice. It's the only time I'm ever going to use a liberal argument. And it's not about abortion. This is about vaccinations. Well, let's be clear. I understand, like I said before, that there's misinformation on this topic. I believe that some of the things that the anti-vaxxers say very well hold water. And I have way too many close family members and friends who have had issues with vaccinations, or have had friends who have issues, to not take that somewhat seriously. But obviously there's misinformation on every single topic. And what I think is crazy and ironic, this is a point that Michelle Malkin made in a writing that she made recently, is she pointed out misinformation of all kinds abounds on the internet. The world's most influential mainstream media websites and celebrity social media accounts, for example, recklessly fan the flames of the recent the Catholic high school in Jesse Smollett hate crime hoax. But no one in Washington is calling for the boycott of the Washington Post or TMZ over the false and misleading stories. But for some reason, hint, the pharmaceutical business, politicians and government bureaucrats are now hell-bent on deplatforming any and all dissenters who challenge the mandatory vaccine regimens. And she's absolutely right, okay? There is false information everywhere. But what I don't like is that now, because of pressure from Representative Adam Schiff, I think is how you say his name, he's a Democrat from California, Amazon recently pulled the documentaries Vaxxed from Cover Up to Catastrophe, Man-Made Epidemic, and Shoot 'em Up, The Truth About Vaccines. That's 3 documentaries from its Prime Video streaming service, and they're pulling it because of this pressure. Last week, Google-owned YouTube moved to demonetize anti-vaccine channels, tweaking algorithms to suppress vaccine conspiracy videos and combat vaccine hysteria. Pinterest blocks users from searching the term vaccine or vaccinations or anti-vax, no matter what the results are going to be. And Facebook plans to downgrade vaccine skeptics content on newsfeed, recommended user groups, and ads. That's crazy. I mean, obviously these are privately owned businesses. They can do what they want, but do I think it's right? No. The same way they suppress conservatives' voices and demonetize their videos. Do I know it's their right as privately owned companies or the companies that they are? Yeah, that's their prerogative. But do I like it? No. I think the information should be out there. Whether it's false or true, we should be able to explore those options. And someday when I do have to face those decisions myself on whether or not I'm going to vaccinate my children, you bet your butt I want to know both sides. You are 100% fooling yourself if you think that one side has all the answers. They don't. The vaccination side, they don't have all the answers, and quite frankly, they are very motivated to make money off of their vaccines. And the anti-vaxxers, can they be a little intense and then maybe be prone to scare tactics and falsified information? Yeah, totally. But is there some truth in both sides? Absolutely. So you bet your butt all concerned parents are going to want to know what both sides are. So to downgrade it, demonetize, that's ludicrous to me and really and kind of gross. Well, Senator Rand Paul, who happens to be a physician and parent himself, was the lone voice of dissent at the Senate hearing this week. This is from Michelle Malkin. While acknowledging the benefits of vaccines generally outweighed the risk, he noted the plain truth that, quote, "it is wrong to say there are no risks to vaccines," unquote. He added that over $4 billion has been paid by the federal vaccine injury compensation program for adults and children who have been injured or died as a result of receiving federally recommended childhood vaccines. See? We've got a voice of reason, and it's Senator Rand Paul in this case. There are risks to vaccines. You're kidding yourself if you don't think there are risks. Are there risks to also not using vaccines? Yes. You weigh the risks, and it is our responsibility to discover that, to research that, and make that choice. But to have the government involved, I'm sorry, no, they can't handle your mail. They definitely can't handle what goes in your body and may or may not kill you. So that's that. That's my take on vaccines. Oh, and you know what? Let's just add one more layer to that because I've been asked by a lot of y'all about this. So I'm going to just bring it up briefly. There are some controversies, heavy controversies, because many vaccines use aborted fetal matter in developing and making these vaccines. So for many people, it's also a religious issue. Abortion is such a heavy, huge moral issue that is got to be taken into account too. And if some people want to reject them on moral grounds, that is their prerogative. The same way that we shouldn't be forced to pay for abortions because we're morally against it, we also shouldn't be forced to support a product of aborted fetal tissue if we're morally against that. That's just what it comes down to. So, all right, now truly moving on from that topic, I want to talk to you about the book Unplanned. Now, I have recently, in the last few weeks, I very briefly mentioned this book. We actually talked more about the trailer to the movie, and we showed that. I don't know why I'm saying we. I should say I showed that. That's random. There's no hidden person behind the camera over here. Anyways, I showed that. I want to tell you now about the book. I actually read this book cover to cover in listened to it. I listened to this book from beginning to end in probably less than 24 hours, maybe max it was 42 hours, but it's probably closer to 24 hours. I couldn't stop listening to this book. This book, Unplanned by Abby Johnson. It's about Abby Johnson, who she quit her job in October of 2009. And the simple act became a national news story, many of you who remember this, because Abby was the director of a Planned Parenthood clinic in Texas, who, after participating in an actual abortion procedure for the very first time, and it was a ultrasound guided abortion, which means she had a full visual, she walked down the street to join the Coalition for Life, and completely flip side, she had 2 abortions of her own. She was such a strong believer in what she was doing at Planned Parenthood, and she so firmly believed in it, and so she literally flipped in the matter of that one 10-minute act of being part of an abortion, and realized she could never do this again. And it became a national news story. And so I read her book and I bawled. And I'm not a crier during books. Like, the only other book I bawled my eyes out during reading, actually, there's been 2 other books I really cried. One was Where the Red Fern Grows. If you read this book, then you understand why. I bawled like a baby at the end I'm actually not going to give it away, but I bawl at the end of Where the Red Fern Grows, and I've probably read that 3 times. I bawl every time. The other book was actually one I'm going to deconstruct probably next week, and it's called Slave Stealers by Tim Ballard, and I'll tell you more about that one next week. And then this book, I literally was like a puddle on the floor reading this book, because I am a pro-lifer at the core. I've always been a pro-lifer, but this book opened my eyes to abortion and what it's like on both sides more than anything else I have read or watched or listened to, because Abby so thoroughly believed in what she was doing on the other side. I understood for the first time. I feel like I truly understood that those who are pro-choice, granted, there are really, really evil, corrupt people on the pro-choice side, but I feel like after reading this, I understand that there are many on the pro-abortion side who have all the right motives, all the heart, who are Christians and believers in Christ and are just misinformed. They don't have the information, and they do really want what's best for women. And so it really was a paradigm shift for me, and I can't tell you how much I was moved reading this book. I truly was a puddle reading it multiple times in it. I felt for Abby more than anyone else. I feel like, and there I've read a lot of really touching and horrific abortion stories, but for Abby, I felt like I understood. I felt like the way she explained herself, I understood why people could be pro-choice. For the first time, it actually made sense why people could feel that way. Now, do I think it's right? No. Do I think it holds water at the end of the day? No. But do I understand it now a little bit better? Yes. And also, she does a really fantastic job of explaining the pro-life movement and how we're getting it wrong sometimes, and how we are not helping the conversation and not helping people come to the pro-life side. And so she just did such a phenomenal job. If you're pro-life, read this book. We all need this. We need the heart change. We need the paradigm shift. We need this to win the war, the spiritual war against abortion. We need to understand the other side. And Abby Johnson's book does that. So Unplanned by Abby Johnson, I really recommend. And if you're pro-choice, oh my gosh, definitely read this. You're going to at least agree with the first half of her story or her life. And then maybe, just maybe, even if you don't agree at the end of the book with Abby's change of heart, at least maybe it'll help you understand the pro-life side, even if you don't agree at the end of the day. So if you're pro-life, if you're pro-choice, please read this book. And if you're one of those people who you don't read books, you just can't focus, you're waiting for the movie to come out, well, then you're in luck, because the movie Unplanned is coming out on March 29th. That is in just a couple of weeks. As conservatives and as pro-lifers and as pro-choicers, I think we all need to go see this movie. It is rated R. And it is not for nudity, or it's not for language. It's not for anything like that. It's simply because abortion is a very, very violent act. And so it's rated R for violence because of the abortion. And what I think is interesting is that a 13-year-old girl can, in many states, go and get an abortion without parental consent, but she can't see the truth about abortion in a movie about abortion without an adult with her and consent. So just saying, it is at least the movie industry saying what we already knew, and that is that abortion is violent. So go see Unplanned on March 29th. And if you want to get a deeper perspective, or you don't want to wait for that, or you want to prep for that, please go read the book. I'm so serious when I say that if you're pro-life like I am, or if you're pro-choice, at least this opens up the conversation. Okay, now I'm going to move into music and movies. This one's a little different than it usually is. I'm actually going to combine them with a combined topic for music and movie of Michael Jackson, specifically the HBO documentary that came out called Leaving Neverland. Now, if you've been following me on Instagram, especially in my stories, I talked a little bit about this very briefly. I'm going to tell you more about my takeaway on that. But first, I'm going to show you a little bit of that trailer. So here is a little bit of that, and then we'll deconstruct that.
Everybody wanted to meet Michael or be with Michael. And then he likes you.
I was 7 years old. Michael asked, "Do you and the family want to come to Neverland?"
We drive in and forget about all your problems. You were in Neverland. It was a fantasy.
The days were filled with magical childhood adventure experiences. Playing tag, watching movies, eating junk food, anything you could ever want as a child.
There's no thoughts of this is wrong or anything like that.
He told me if they ever found out what we were doing, he and I would go to jail for the rest of our lives.
Secrets will eat you up. You feel so alone.
I want to be able to speak the truth as loud as I had to speak the lie for so long.
All right, so that's some heavy, heavy stuff. essentially what it comes down to is this documentary was in 2 portions, and total it was 4 hours long. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. When I started it, I didn't know what I was getting in for. It is very, very graphic, not visually, but in the descriptions of what happened to these 2 boys when they were little. And it was truly, truly, truly disturbing. Just very, very graphic. If you're not someone who can stomach that, I would recommend you just read about the documentary, and you'll essentially learn everything you needed to know anyways. If you can handle this kind of heaviness, then it's very enlightening. I am going to be honest, I skipped through little portions here and there, just like hitting the 10-second forward when it got really graphic, because after listening to it for a while, I was, I was like, I get the picture. I don't need this kind of imagery. It was just really heavy. So, and obviously I wouldn't watch this with kids or teenagers ever. It was way, way mature, too mature of adult content for young people to handle. The thing about this, though, is, and what I found to be interesting, is when I did briefly bring it up on Instagram, I got a lot of vicious messages from quite a few people who are like hardcore Michael Jackson fans. I've actually never been a Michael Jackson fan. I think his music is like whatever. I just never really been into it. Obviously, I'm familiar with it because it's everywhere. But there's a few arguments I hear out there a lot, and got a lot from a few of you, which was like, these were just allegations, or they just wanted money, or he was proven innocent in court or whatever, or else there are other young children he hung out with who vehemently say, like, Michael Jackson never harmed me. And then also one that helps kind of gross is a lot of people have been like, well, Michael Jackson was just like a child himself. He's so childlike. First of all, I just think it's fascinating because, yes, they are just allegations right now, but you don't get proven innocent in court. Like, the allegations can be thrown out because there's not enough supporting evidence, but it doesn't mean he was proven innocent. Also, just because maybe he didn't do it to some children, it doesn't mean that it didn't happen to others. And also, the last one I talked about of him being just a child himself is disgusting. No, he was a grown man and very much responsible for his actions. Now, this is a little portion I want to read to you from an article by Matt Walsh. I'm a huge fan of Matt Walsh's writings, but he wrote an article saying Michael Jackson was a monster, and we can put this together based on simple facts that are not just allegations, that are known facts that everyone accepts. And those are, number one, Jackson sought and befriended prepubescent boys. He took these boys as companions and traveled the world with them. And every so often he would find a new young male companion and move on from the old one. This fact is not disputed. Number two, Jackson lavished the boys' families with gifts and money. This fact is also not disputed. Number three, Jackson invited these boys into his home, which was filled with toys and candy. This fact is not disputed. Number four, Jackson invited these boys into his bed. This fact is not disputed. Number five, Jackson had a stash of bondage pornography by his bed. This fact is not disputed. Number six, the bed was in a room behind a locked door at the end of a hallway equipped with an alarm system that would alert him when someone was approaching. This fact is not disputed. Which leads us to the last piece of the puzzle. Number seven, 5 of the boys who shared a bed with Jackson later accused him of abuse. This fact is also not disputed. It's a cumulative case, is what Walsh says. If all Jackson ever did was give gifts to random families, I'd say he was a philanthropist. And if all he did was fill his home with toys and candy, I'd say he was kind of weird. But each piece fits with the next piece, and the picture gets darker and more sadistic as you continue to connect them. Absolutely agree with this piece. It's not the whole piece if you'd like to go look it up by Matt Walsh, but those pieces and that laid evidence out. All those pieces are not disputed by either side. And the fact that any grown man would take random strange boys that he'd met that day or had known for a couple of hours and have those little boys sleep in the same bed with him, I'm sorry, but that is really disturbing. Also, I don't want to sound I don't know. I just feel like these moms are already under so much pressure because, and so much guilt on their own, but I'm sorry, but it's just plain dumb to let a 7-year-old little boy sleep with a grown man, and you're in a completely different building sleeping somewhere else. And this happens for months and months and then years. From one boy, from 7 to 14, Michael Jackson abused him. And so with all this evidence that is not disputed, I would definitely tend to lean towards this guy was a sicko. He was mentally and spiritually disturbed. And a lot of people have been starting to ask the question because of this, and this has been a topic of discussion before, but should pedophilia be treated as a disease or as, or like, should it be criminalized or just treated as like a disease? I think both. I think you're sick in the head, and also it's a crime. You're harming children, and it's something they're going to have to recover from for the rest of their life. So truly heavy documentary. It was very well done. If it's something that you can handle, I'd say it's definitely, if anything, it spreads a big light on children who are abused, because so many people think, oh, well, my kid would never get abused, or that would never let that happen because my kid would not let somebody do that to them. And they would tell me, but what they don't understand is how pedophiles work, how grooming works. So if anything, even if at the end of it, you still believe Michael Jackson's innocent, I believe we can all walk away with this with a better understanding of how children are abused, what those signs could be, and also understanding where and how we go wrong with trying to understand these children, because these children oftentimes don't know that they're being abused. They don't think, oh, this is wrong, this is abuse. They don't know. It's very clever and very sadistic on the part of the abuser, but if anything, it gives you a better understanding of that. All right, now I'm going to move quickly and briefly into questions, and we'll end with the good in the world. So today's questions, Kayla asks, do you ever worry about the future of the nation and society as a whole? I mean, obviously, I wonder where we're going. Do I stay up night and worry about it? No, I don't, because at the end of the day, I know that I serve the God of the universe, and he is a good God, and that at the end of the day, while I can be concerned about the world around me and do everything in my power to influence it for the good, at the end of the day, Christianity is my comfort, knowing that it is at the end of the day about maybe we don't win this war here on earth, or we don't win this battle here on earth, I should say. At the end of the day, I want to be able to face my maker and say, you know what, maybe we short-term lost that battle, but I want to be able to look him in the eyes and say, I worked every day doing what I could to be fighting on the right side. And that can mean a lot of different things. That could mean raising good children. And I'm speaking more generally to those of you who may be listening and wondering, wait, what am I doing? It's raising good children. It's investing in a good community and pouring into those around you, and having a strong marriage and pouring into your partner, and going to church and finding that community of like-minded Christ followers, and supporting and encouraging and teaching the next generation and the generation around you. And so at the end of the day, do I stay up night and at night and worry? No. Do I have concern about my country? Yes. That's why I fight as hard as I fight. But at the end of the day, I know it's about community. I know it's about individuals. I know it's about families. And at the end of the day, truly, I believe that if we can heal the family, we can heal the world. So I'm less concerned about the entire world and the entire nation as I am about individual families, because that's where the true change will come in our country. If we can each of us buckle down and focus on healing our families and healing our communities, which we do have direct control over. We can't always control what the president vetoes or doesn't veto, or who's president or not president, but we can control the spiritual and emotional and physical health of our family. And that's something we have absolute, and we don't have control over people, but we have so much to say and so much effect on our families. And I think if we can heal there, then we can heal other places. So that was a longer answer than I anticipated giving, but that's that question. Scribe asks, should I get a 3-piece or a 5-piece chicken McNugget? Bro, neither. Are you serious right now? Go to Chick-fil-A. If you're going to chicken, go get Chick-fil-A. David asks, Were you ever a practicing Mormon, or do you just have family that is? My mother was a practicing Mormon. Right after she left the FLDS faith, she was a practicing Mormon and was baptized into the Mormon church. And I think she went to church like 3 times, and then she was like, this is BS. And was like, and so I'm technically on the Mormon records as a member. I think I'm just like a non-practicing member, or like a Jack Mormon. I don't know what I'm classified as, but I think I am in the official Mormon records. But no, I was never baptized into the Mormon church. I was baptized into a Christian church. And so I think the answer to that is no, I was never a practicing Mormon, but I do have a lot of loved ones who are practicing Mormons. So that's why I try never to really like hardcore diss on the Mormon faith, because so many of the people I love the dearest in the entire world, I don't even know if that was like the correct way to say that. The people I love the most in this world, so many of them are practicing Mormons. And I do love them so, so, so dearly. And also I love a lot of the cultural effects of Mormonism. So that's that. Do I believe in Mormonism as a faith doctrine? No. And I do have family and friends who are practicing Mormons, yes. So I know quite a bit about the Mormon culture and religion due to living in Utah and having so many friends and families there. All right, last segment, and we will say goodbye. It is the good in the world. Now, this article really hit home. It has a little bit of bad, but at the end, I believe that there's so much good in it, and that's why I brought it up. A wife told her husband to choose between giving up their baby with Down syndrome or divorce, and the man, he chose the baby. This is valiant. This is true masculinity in my mind. This is what it means to be a good man, a good father, and it was inspiring. So this is from LifeSite News, and it says here, families are meant to grow together, but sometimes it doesn't work out that way. After his son was born with Down syndrome, Samuel Forrest had to live through a heart-wrenching choice, either put him up for adoption or watch his wife walk out of his life. Forrest, who hails from New Zealand, was overjoyed when his wife gave birth to their son in a hospital in January. But then he learned that not everyone was excited about their son, Leo. When the doctor came out, he said, there was a real problem with your son, Forrest told ABC News. When I walked into the room, they all turned to me and said, Leo has Down syndrome. In Armenian hospitals, Forrest said, the hospitals allow parents of children with Down syndrome to give their children up for adoption without taking them home. My wife had already decided, so all of this was done behind my back, he said. His wife demanded him, telling him that to either give up their child or she would divorce him, according to Forrest's account. They took me in to see him, and I looked at this little guy and I said, he's beautiful, he's perfect, and I'm absolutely keeping him. Well, they confirmed with ABC News that the wife has in fact filed for divorce from her husband, and to cope with these new expenditures and being a single father, Forrest has started a GoFundMe page, which was very, very quickly exceeded the amount that he was requesting. Now, yes, this is sad. There is a family coming apart, and I don't like divorce. I'm not a proponent or an advocate for divorce, but at the end of the day, men get such a bad rap in today's Western world. I should not say, I do not lump my in, but the left and our media frequently disses on men, and we're all talking about how the failure of men and the failure of dads and single parent households where dads have left their children. Well, this is beauty. This is beauty in a man. This is true masculinity. This is men acting out the way they should, standing up for the innocent, doing the right thing, staying with their children even when it's hard. And I just think it's really admirable. So I want to give a shout out to this guy for being awesome and doing the right thing and accepting God's gift of this son, even if in his wife's eyes he wasn't perfect. Well, this man is doing the right thing, and I think it's beautiful. So on that note, I'm going to wish you a happy, happy rest of your week, and we will talk to each other next week.